We have a winged serpent, Jason gets his mask, Michael Myers is no more, and we have a basket case named Belial. These films and more coming up on episode 3 of my top 10 horror series. 1982 is coming right at you, so stick around. What's going on, fellow den dwellers? Welcome back to my channel, a tiny little spot in the smallest corner of YouTube I like to call the Movie Den. I'm Scott, and today I'm thrilled to be bringing you episode 3 of my top 10 horror series from the best decade in horror, the 1980s. It's been going pretty good so far. Let's keep that momentum going. Subscribe if you're new here. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. So many of the films from 1982 have since gone on to achieve some cult status, and it's demonstrated the genre's ability to resonate with audiences over time. It was also a transformative year in bringing us some commercial hits and some influential cult classics. So let's take a look at my top films from 1982. The Beast Within is a strange blend of horror and supernatural. It's directed by Philip Moore and is often overlooked. It does have a few standout aspects, both good and bad. The story follows a young man who begins to transform into a monstrous creature due to a dark secret in his parents' past. There's definitely an intriguing concept here, but the execution feels uneven. The screenplay, written by Tom Holland, who later went on to write Fright Night, offers a slow burn, but it occasionally drags with pacing that leaves parts of the film feeling a little sluggish. The special effects, in particular the transformation scenes, are one of the film's highlights. The practical effects by Tom Berman are gruesome and unsettling, fitting for this genre. However, the creature design leaves a lot to be desired and can feel somewhat lackluster, I guess. Especially in comparison to other films of the same era. It's a bit of a letdown given the film's build-up. Acting-wise, we have performances from Ronny Cox and Bibi Besh as the concerned parents, which are solid and help to ground the more outrageous shit going on. But the film star, Paul Clemens, who plays Michael, he doesn't quite deliver the emotional depth needed for the audience to fully invest in his character's struggle. His transformation into the Beast feels more melodramatic than terrifying at times. The Beast Within captures a gloomy Southern Gothic atmosphere with some great use of shadow and the rural setting, yet the direction for Moore is inconsistent. There are moments of tension, but others that fall flat due to the awkward staging or some of the pacing issues. The score by Les Baxter is serviceable, but doesn't leave much of an impression. It's atmospheric enough, but it's not particularly memorable or stands out in any way. It has moments of effective horror, especially with its body horror elements, but stumbles in the pacing, performances, and story development. It's worth a watch for fans of early 80s horror, but don't expect a hidden gem.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween.
Now, if you're like me, it may have taken you some time to give Halloween 3 a chance, especially knowing it wasn't a continuation of the first 2 Halloween films. And I didn't watch it for years, and when I finally did, I really didn't like it at all. But as my horror taste evolved, I decided to give it another chance, this time watching it for what it was supposed to be, a standalone film that was supposed to be part of this planned anthology series. The idea was that each film would tell a new story released every year rather than continuing the saga of Michael Myers. Obviously, the idea didn't catch on, and after the backlash, they brought Michael Myers back for Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Now, when I revisit Halloween 3, I appreciate it for its unique story. The plot revolves around a sinister mask-making company that has dark, sinister plans for Halloween night. While it's definitely a bizarre film and veers into sci-fi with mind control and Stonehenge thrown in, it's actually grown on me. Tom Atkins leads the cast, and while his performances might not be groundbreaking, there's definitely something charming about his gruff, no-nonsense portrayal of a small-town Dr. Cotton, this strange conspiracy. The production values are a mixed bag, though. John Carpenter's influence is still felt in the eerie synth score, which keeps that signature Halloween vibe alive. However, the pacing can feel off at times, and the effects, while practical, are hit and miss, especially with the infamous death scenes that can come across as more campy than scary. That being said, Halloween 3 has become a part of my spooky season lineup every year. It's not perfect by any means, but it's definitely found its place in horror history as a cult classic. If you can go in with an open mind and accept it as something totally different from the Michael Myers saga, it's definitely worth the watch.
Who are you? What are you doing? Hey, now cut that out right now. That's not funny.
Now, at this point in the Friday the 13th franchise, I was just a mild fan. And it wasn't until part 4 came out that I finally got fully on board. So Friday the 13th part 3 is famous for one thing, Jason getting his mask. And I'll admit, that's a pretty big moment in horror history, but if I'm being honest, the movie itself, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. Thought it was meh. The production definitely leans into the 3D gimmick. And while that might have been fun in theaters back in the day, when you're watching it at home, these 3D moments can feel a little awkward. You've got random things like yo-yos and pitchforks flying at the screen, and it sometimes pulls you out of the terror. The kills, well, they're still creative, but not as inventive as the previous installments. The characters are your typical 80s slasher fodder, and while some are memorable, they're just there to up the body count. You know, the pacing drags a little bit, and the tension doesn't quite hit the heights of the first two. The atmosphere, though, it still works. The rural setting and the isolated cabin by Crystal Lake, it's all very much in line with the feel of the franchise, but there's just something about part 3 that just doesn't click with me as much as the others did. Feels like the series was starting to run on autopilot at this point. But hey, it's still worth a look if you're a fan of Jason and this franchise as a whole, and it's good enough for me to make this list. What do you guys think about part 3? Let me know down below.
Yeah, he's doing fine.
I've always loved the style of stop motion animation, and Q the Winged Serpent really caught my attention because of this, and every time I watch it, I find something enjoyable in it. The setting in New York City in the early 80s is a fantastic backdrop for a creature feature like this, where you get the blend of gritty urban crime drama mixed with a creature supernatural horror type deal. And the creature, Q, can't pronounce its real name, is brought to life with charming stop motion effects that may feel dated to some, but have a nostalgic appeal for fans of that era of filmmaking. Now, the movie isn't without its flaws. The pacing can be a bit uneven, and some of the characters feel a little underdeveloped. And the acting, especially from David Carradine and Michael Moriarty, ranges from solid to hammy at times. But that actually adds to the charm for me. Moriarty, in particular, gives such a strange, offbeat performance, and he becomes one of the film's highlights. While the practical effects and monster design are fun, there are some moments where the low budget really shows, especially in some of the action sequences, which can come off as a bit awkward. But what I love is that director Larry Cohen, he embraces these limitations and still manages to tell a compelling and bizarre story. Q, the Winged Serpent, may not be perfect, but it's an entertaining and unique entry in the creature feature subgenre. And if you're a fan of stop motion animation or enjoy quirky, low budget horror films, this one's definitely worth checking out. After seeing An American Werewolf in London as a young teen, I was always looking for movies where ordinary people turn into some kind of animal or creature. And that curiosity led me to Cat People, which is a remake of the 1942 classic. Directed by Paul Schrader, this film was an entirely different beast, blending horror, eroticism, and myth in a way that really stood out, but it wasn't without its flaws. The film follows Irina, played by Natasha Kinski, who learns that she comes from a family of shapeshifters who transform into panthers when they are sexually aroused. Kinski's performance is captivating, and she brings an alluring sense of mystery and vulnerability to her role. Malcolm McDowell as her brother, Paul, is a standout with his intense, slightly unhinged presence. The chemistry between the two are strange yet a bit compelling, and it adds an unsettling layer of tension to the story. Visually, Cat People does excel in its use of vibrant color palettes, especially reds and blacks. It creates a dreamlike and occasionally nightmarish atmosphere. The transformation scenes are a highlight, blending practical effects with moody cinematography, and they hold up surprisingly well. And the synth-heavy score is haunting and gives you a distinctive 80s flavor to the film, though at times it does feel a little bit overused, and it makes certain scenes feel more melodramatic than they really need to be. While the film's mood and atmosphere are striking, the pacing is the issue here. The movie takes its time building up the tension, but at some points it just bogs down, and there are stretches where not much happens at all, and it really hurts the film, I think, especially during the second act. The plot can also be a bit disjointed as it struggles with horror, romance, and fantasy elements without really fully committing to just one. And this might leave some viewers, I know it left me, lost or disconnected from the story. Besides that, the good does make up for the bad, and the performances, the visuals, and the transformation sequences make it worth just the watch alone. I recommend it, even if for its slow pacing.
I just don't want to wake up anymore.
Halfway down the list at number 5 is Amityville 2: The Possession. And when I first saw the first Amityville horror film, I was scared shitless. The eerie house, the unsettling atmosphere, the sheer dread, it all just got under my skin. So when Amityville 2: The Possession came around, honestly, I was scared to watch it because I knew it was a prequel that explored the DeFeo family murders, which inspired the original story. It was already creeping me out, just thinking about how much darker and more sinister this one could get. The film dives deeper into the supernatural, taking a much more visceral and disturbing approach than the original did. This film is directed by Damiano Damiani. I probably butchered that, but visually it has a certain mood and style that really works in its favor. The camera work captures the oppressive atmosphere of the house really well, and the special effects, while somewhat dated by today's standards, they still manage to feel unsettling, especially the makeup work during the possession scenes. And there's an air of intensity that wasn't as present in the first film, and that really stands out. Burt Young plays an abusive father, and he's menacing to the point where he almost feels more terrifying than the actual demonic force. But other performances like Diane Franklin, who plays Patricia, she's a bit more uneven, though she does have some compelling moments in the film. The family dynamics are uncomfortable and disturbing in ways that may make the film hard to watch for some, particularly with the inclusion of some pretty taboo subjects. The script, based on Murder in Amityville by Hans Halser, it takes a lot of liberties with the true story angle, but it's not necessarily a negative, but it does shift the focus from a haunted house story to more of a full-blown possession tale. The pacing can feel off, especially in the second half, where it descends into typical possession movie territory, though I will say that the exorcism sequence at the end is pretty intense and well shot. Amityville 2 wasn't really for everyone. It's grim, it's uncomfortable, and it's far more graphic than the original was. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first film, but I respect its ambition to go darker. Basket Case, directed by Frank Henenlotter, is a cult classic that encapsulates the raw energy and inventive spirit of the early 80s indie horror. The film follows Dwayne Bradley, a young man carrying a mysterious wicker basket containing his deformed twin brother, Belial. The premise alone sets the stage for a wild ride, and Henenlotter's unique vision shines through in every aspect of the film. From a cinematography standpoint, Basket Case embraces its low-budget origins with a gritty aesthetic. The film was shot in New York City, which adds to its sense of urban life and isolation to the story. The cramped settings heighten the tension, and the shaky camera work contributes to the film's overall sense of unease. While some may see this as a flaw, it actually enhances the film's charm, reflecting the resourcefulness of indie filmmakers during this era. The practical effects are a standout feature, especially when showcasing Belial. Oh, Belial. This creature design gives Belial a tangible presence that adds to the dark humor. It's a reminder of the creativity that defined the genre. Seriously, though, I can't help but laugh every time Belial is on screen. It's some funny shit, bro, and I ain't even lying. It's, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The cast are what you would expect for a low-budget film, with Kevin Van Henrich's portrayal of Dwayne being earnest but somewhat wooden at times. His struggle with his brother's monstrous nature is compelling, but some supporting characters, particularly the psychiatrist, comes off as more of a character than a character. The unevenness can be jarring, but it does fit within the film's campy framework. The film score, composed by Henenlotter himself, perfectly complements the bizarre atmosphere. Its quirky, synth-heavy sound captures the film's blend of horror and absurdity, and it adds an almost playful element. The music underscores the film's offbeat humor, which is another defining aspect of Basket Case. It doesn't take itself too seriously, offering moments of levity amidst the horror. The film's chaotic energy occasionally gives way to slower moments that might test the patience of you, but if you're willing to stick with it, you'll find that it culminates in a satisfyingly outrageous climax. Basket Case is a film that exemplifies the quirky, boundary-pushing nature of the early 80s horror cinema. It's definitely not for everyone. The blend of horror and dark comedy can be a bit jarring. Let's put it this way. This is a film where my wife came into the room while I was watching it. She looks at what I'm watching. She looks at me and she says, "What the fuck are you watching?" Great stuff. Creepshow is written by Stephen King and directed by George A. Romero, and it is a brilliant homage to the classic horror comic books of the 1950s. The film is comprised of 5 segments, each brimming with creativity, suspense, and a dash of dark humor. Starting with Father's Day, we witness a vengeful spirit seeking justice for a past wrong. It features Ed Harris, and the special effects, especially with the makeup used for the undead character, are impressive and evoke that classic horror vibe. Next up is The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, where Stephen King himself plays the lead. This segment showcases a delightful blend of comedy and horror. King's performance is both endearing and tragic as he transforms into a victim of a meteorite that brings about a grotesque fate. The whimsical visuals and clever writing give it a unique charm, making it memorable. Moving on to Something to Tide You Over, we delve into a tale of betrayal and revenge, and Leslie Nielsen gives an outstanding performance as the psychopathic lover who exacts revenge on his unfaithful wife and her lover, played by Ted Danson. The tension builds masterfully, culminating in a chilling finale that leaves a lasting impact. In the second to last segment, we have The Crate, which features a monstrous creature lurking in the college's storage space in a crate. The dark humor shines through as characters navigate their fears and desires. Hal Holbrook delivers an exceptional performance, capturing the essence of fear and curiosity. And we have Adrienne Barbeau as his wife. She's just there, and her campy self. Nothing to write home about. But anyways, the creature effects are both creepy and impressive, and it adds to the segment's overall impact. Worked really well. Finally, we arrive at my favorite segment from Creepshow, and that's They're Creeping Up on You, a claustrophobic tale set in a sterile environment plagued by an infestation of cockroaches. The tension mounts as we watch the protagonist, played by E.G. Marshall, descend into madness as he tries to eradicate every roach he sees. The segment's themes of paranoia and fear of the unknown resonate strongly, making it a standout in this anthology. I probably would have ended up the same way as he did. Romero and King deliver a memorable anthology. All the segments range from decent to pretty good, with the last segment, like I said, being my favorite. Which segment or segments were your favorite? Let me know down below, guys. Poltergeist stands as my favorite haunted house film, and it's easy to see why. Directed by Tobe Hooper, but often said to be heavily influenced by Steven Spielberg, the film beautifully blends horror with a sense of awe and genuine emotion, which are all a hallmark of Spielberg's style. While the debates continue about who really directed the film, what's undeniable is that the film has an unmistakable Spielberg touch. From the outset, the film captivates you with its unique suburban setting, a seemingly idyllic backdrop that becomes a nightmare for the Freeling family. I love every character in this film and the believable bond that they all had. I was invested. The cinematography by Matthew F. Leonetti captures both the warmth of that family life and the eerie, unsettling moments that follow them. The use of practical effects, like the famous scene with the tree and the stunning optical effects of the spectral presence in the television and floating down the stairs, it definitely adds a great deal to the film. You don't get that with CGI in these types of films. Jerry Goldsmith's score further adds to and enhances the film's emotional depth, oscillating between moments of tension and relief. The cast is stellar, with Craig T. Nelson and JoBeth Williams delivering heartfelt performances as parents struggling to protect their children from supernatural forces. The child actors, particularly Heather O'Rourke as the innocent Carol Ann, embody pure vulnerability, which makes the film's darker moments hit even harder. And their genuine chemistry brings a real sense of urgency and emotional investment that really resonated with me. I enjoy Poltergeist just as much each time as I did when I watched it the first time, reconnecting with those emotions and terror that continue to stay with me. It proves its timeless appeal, really. And at number one, my absolute favorite film from 1982, The Thing. And this is one of my absolute favorite horror movies. And while you could easily classify it as a science fiction film, and to me, anything with spaceships, extraterrestrial creatures landing on Earth, all that's in the sci-fi realm, even if they're slaughtering people, blood and gore. But let's be real. This film deserves to be the best in either genre, and I'll take that to the bank. From the very first frame, the setting plays a crucial role in creating the palpable tension that underpins the entire film. The remote Antarctic research station is not just a backdrop, it's a character itself, and it amplifies the isolation and paranoia that envelops the crew. And the harsh, desolate environment mirrors the dread that permeates the film's story. The tone of the thing is expertly crafted, blending dread, suspense in a way that really keeps you on the edge of your seat. John Carpenter's direction is masterful. This is probably my favorite film of his and his best work, in my opinion, over Halloween. And it allows the story to unfold at a deliberate pace that heightens the buildup of tension. He expertly balances moments of claustrophobia with the sheer terror of the unknown, lurking in the shadows, who's who, whatever. And the spectacular practical effects by Mr. Rob Bottin, my goodness, they really set the bar pretty freaking high. Some of the very best practical effects I've ever seen on film. Every transformation and grotesque manifestation of the alien creature is a grotesque and weirdly fascinating demonstration of the artistry that is hard to come by in a CG-heavy landscape in today's films. I mean, they could try and go back to this, and it works. It's more believable. And we've actually started to slowly, but started seeing a little more of this return with films like the recent Alien Romulus. And it's no surprise that the thing has influenced countless filmmakers who have tried and often failed to replicate its brilliance. You see what I did there? The Thing is a triumph in storytelling, atmosphere, and visual and practical effects, and its legacy continues to stay with you from the very first time you've seen it, and it makes it a film that horror fans really, really cherish. I know I do. It's a true masterpiece that stands the test of time. Finally, guys, I'd like to announce that I finally hit that 200 subscriber mark. I think we're like at 205 now. And I thank you all for subscribing and tuning into the channel. I appreciate you all for giving me, little guy, a chance to share my thoughts with you. So let's get discussing in the comments below. If it's your first time here, please do subscribe to the channel, especially if you like today's content. Tap that bell to get notified when I drop new content. I've got a couple of reviews coming up in episode 4 of my top 10 horror series. Stay aware, stay safe, and don't forget, not everyone is who they seem. Again, I'm Scott. See you on the next one. Yeah.